All right, so I think I should be live now. And so here we go. So, a few days ago, I was going through the Book of Mark. I actually was talking about the Book of Mark with a friend, and we were talking about what certain things in Mark actually mean. And you don't really know what a lot of these writings actually mean until you start to go back and look at ancient writings and ancient literature, and you'll start to see just how little we actually really know about these texts. Like the prime examples I usually give are questions like, why was Jesus born to a virgin? We don't know why Jesus was born to a virgin, but it happened, all right. Why was Jesus in the temple at 12 years old? What was so significant about that? Or why did Jesus begin his ministry at 30 years old? Why did Jesus get baptized? Why did he have to go out into the wilderness? What is all of that stuff about? Why did he transfigure like the sun on top of a mountain? Why did he have to die in which the way he died? And so on and so forth. And a lot of times we read these Bible stories and we understand the basis of them, sort of, but we can't really tell you what they actually mean. Why is it significant? Why is it important? If somebody were to ask you, why did Jesus start his ministry at 30? A lot of us will say, I don't know, but it happened. So I'm going to get into the finer details on what these things mean. For example, coincidentally, Jesus started his ministry at 30 years old. And did you know that in order to become a priest, that's when you would start your priestly duties at 30 years old in the Old Testament? Or did you know that King David was 30 years old when he became the king of Israel? So just like King David becomes king at 30, and just like how a person would start their priestly duties at 30, Jesus becomes king at 30, or at least he's anointed to become king at 30 years old. And he starts his priestly duties, he starts his ministry at 30 years old, because the Messiah is supposed to be the king of Israel and he's supposed to be a high priest. So Jesus fulfills his kingly office and he fulfills his priestly office all in one go at the age of 30, which is why it would have been really significant for the gospel writers to include why and when Jesus started his ministry at 30 years old. So there's a whole lot of finer details in the gospels, in the Bible, that we kind of gloss over because we don't exactly know exactly what they mean. So when we start talking about what things mean and looking at these things from a ancient Near Eastern perspective, I want to go through the story in Mark that we're all too familiar with. We hear it in every movie, right? Just about any supernatural movie. I know they even had this in Ghost Rider years ago. We are legion, for we are many, right? We know that story about Jesus casting out the legion of demons, but what does it mean? What does it actually mean? Why was that so significant? So we're going to get into that today. I think I can see your comments in the chat, live stream, something like that. I don't know. You guys can write something. I'll see if I see it. But let me share my screen. I want to share. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. So I'm going to my Lagos. Here we go. So this is Mark chapter 5, and this is talking about the demon possessed man. I'm going to start from the top, maybe some people watching might not even know the story. So verse 1, they came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. And when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. He lived among the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain, for he had often been bound with shackles and chains. But he wrenched the chains apart, and he broke the shackles in pieces. No one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountains, he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and fell down before him. And crying out with a loud voice, he said, "What do you have to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." For he was saying to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." And Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he begged him earnestly not to send them out of the country. Now a great herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him, saying, "Send us to the pigs, let us enter them." So he gave them permission, and the unclean spirits came out and entered the pigs. And the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the sea. So there's a lot of stuff going on in here. And just going from my commentary, I'm going to be reading a little bit from the NIV Cultural Background Study Bible. So in verse 3, when it says he lived in the tombs, it says Jewish people regarded tombs and anything associated with the dead as impure. Some associated spirits with such sights. No one could bind him. He has superhuman strength. It appears in some reports of spirit possession in various cultures, occasionally even to the point of breaking restraints, as in this case. By contrast, Jesus can, in some sense, bind the strong man. He cut himself with stones. Observers in various cultures report that some of the spirit possessed try to harm themselves or others, although in some cases they also seem immune to pain. Some participants in pagan cults were known to cut themselves as masochistic offerings to their gods, a practice that Israel's benevolent God forbade in Deuteronomy 14:1. What do you want with me, Son of the Most High God? The Greek term normally means to put one under oath. This language appears sometimes in magical exorcisms or often in other magical invocations of spirits. If the demons were trying to use defensive magic against Jesus, however, they are unsuccessful. Let me look at this note at 124. What do you want with us? Literally renders what is there between us and you, a phrase that emphasizes distance and often hostility between the speaker and the one addressed. In the Septuagint, the pre-Christian Greek translation of the Old Testament, "I know who you are," in some magical texts, those trying to control spirits declare, "I know you," or "I know your name." Here, the spirit might try to use such knowledge to ward off Jesus, clearly unsuccessful. Interesting. So I actually was reading a paper on this, and I'm going to read this one last section in verse 9, and then I'm going to take you guys to the paper I was reading. So it says, magicians. Oh, okay. I did not mean to do that. There you go. Magicians often try to control a spirit by using its name. If the spirits attempted to magically control Jesus, they failed. Here, Jesus demands their name, legion. On paper, a Roman legion had a strength of 6,000, though usually a fighting force of closer to 5,000. A legion included 10 cohorts, each with 6 centuries, but the demons are probably simply indicating that they are many. So, going to that paper I was reading, I actually want to take you guys to it. So basically, the whole gist of this story is in the ancient Near East, there was this belief that if you knew somebody's name, then you could have power over them. So knowing somebody's name, it gave you a certain type of authority over that spiritual entity, at least. We have stories even like Rumble Stillskin. He challenges this girl to correctly guess his name. We're getting this from somewhere. This is a very long, old, ancient tradition, superstitious belief that if you know somebody's name, you have power over them. And you see this even in the Old Testament. As a matter of fact, if I can find it real quick. Here it is. It's Judges 13:18. I'm actually going to go to it in my Logos and see what comes up. So if you guys know that story, there's a scene where Manoah and his wife are praying. There we go. So let's see. So Manoah and his wife are praying for a baby, right? It's really, really hard for them to conceive. It's really, really hard for them to have a baby. And so, verse 8, it says, then Manoah prayed to the Lord and said, oh Lord, please let the man of God whom you sent come again to us and teach us what we are to do with the child who will be born. Right? And I actually want to go to a commentary. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to put this commentary over here. And let me go to verse 8. Verse 8. There you go. And God listened to the voice of Manoah, and the angel of God came again to the woman as she sat in the field. But Manoah, her husband, was not with her. So the woman ran quickly and told her husband, behold, the man who came to me the other day has appeared to me. And Manoah arose and went after his wife, and came to the man and said to him, are you the man who spoke to this woman? And he said, I am. And Manoah said, now, when your words come true, what is to be the child's manner of life? And what is his mission? And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, of all that I said to the woman, let her be careful. She may not eat of anything that comes from the vine, neither let her drink wine or strong drink, or eat any unclean thing. All that I command her, let her observe. Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "Please let us detain you and prepare a young goat for you." And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "If you detain me, I will not eat of your food. But if you prepare a burnt offering, then offer it to the Lord." For Manoah did not know that he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "What is your name? So that when your words come true, we may honor you." And the angel of the Lord said to him, "Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful?" Right? So Manoah asks for this angel's name, and the angel is like, "Nah, bro, you can't have my name." Right? So this is what Faith Life Commentary says. The Hebrew word used here, palai, elsewhere describes miraculous signs from God. It occurs here on the lips of the angel Yahweh. Yahweh in human form provides a suitable connection with the notion that the Messiah will also be Yahweh embodied, since the same term appears in Isaiah 9:6. Counselor of wonders, palai yo etz. So that's what it says for that. But I want to get into the more ancient or Eastern mystical side. So let's see what the Cultural Study Bible says. It is beyond understanding. So that's what it says in the Cultural Study Bible. Instead of ascending to Manoah's request and giving his name, the divine envoy describes it. His name is extraordinary. Understanding. The Hebrew word reflects the awe-inspiring numinosity of divinity, here perceived by Manoah to be fatal to a human observer. The extraordinary nature of this being may be compared to Mesopotamia, where the Melamu, I am very familiar with the Melamu, a divine brilliance distinguishes the gods. While the Melamu would strike terror in the hearts of those who saw it, it was not deemed to be fatal. At the same time, no abnormal appearance characterizes this messenger because his appearance gave nothing away. The Melamu was this piece of glory. The Melamu was glory, or it was this bright power or this bright radiance that made divine people shine like the sun. And that is how you knew somebody had the Melamu in the ancient East. The Melamu was the glory. And in Christian theology, our version of the Melamu would be the Ruach HaKodesh, or the Holy Spirit. So going a little bit more into this stuff, if you look at this thesis here, this is a thesis. It's called Secret Names of the Ancient Near East. I think that's the title of it. That's the name of it. Let me see, going up. Uh yeah, I actually linked this in the description. So, how are names used in power? The name was a vulnerable part of humans and even the gods. Like all ancient Near Eastern civilizations, ancient Egypt believed the name could be used to invoke the power of the figure that held it. Therefore, a human could control a god by using the god's true name. Likewise, a human's true name held the essence of that person. Therefore, if someone obtained a person's true name, that someone could enact influence on the person whose name is under possession. Not only is it a threat for a person to obtain the power of a person or a god, it is also a threat to Mayat herself. Mayat is an Egyptian goddess. According to ancient Egyptian thought, the order of society would be disturbed if a being of lesser power obtains the power of a god or someone of a higher status, because this conflicts with the ordering of society by Mayat. The secret knowledge through these names also conflict with the secret knowledge that is given by Ra to the king. The hierarchy would be threatened twofold, and event of these propositions could invite chaos and destruction into the ancient Egyptian world. The name holds the entire of essence of a human soul. Therefore, the secret knowledge of a human's name is potentially disastrous. Through the power of names, not only would order be threatened, but one's afterlife would be in danger. For humanity, the most important characteristic of Egyptian religion to protect is one's own afterlife. Thus, it is essential to protect one's name. If a person loses his or her name, then that person will not be identified by the appropriate gods in the afterlife. Therefore, the person is lost forever in between life and afterlife. Without the name, the afterlife is an impossibility. Rittner seems to agree with this idea by stating, felt to be an intrinsic element and source of power, the name did not simply identify, but defined an individual. And let me see if I can find some more interesting stuff just scrolling down. Ra's secret name and et cetera, et cetera. So there's that. There's one last piece of literature I want to go over. So if you go to Genesis, I think it's chapter 2, when Adam is naming the animals, if I'm correct, right? Let me see. I'm looking. Where is it? Here it is, right here. Let me see. Can I highlight this? Oh, here we go. Now out of the ground the Lord God hath formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And I'm going to go to the Cultural Study Bible. Names. Yep. Names were not given randomly in the ancient world. A name may identify the essential nature of the creature, so that giving a name may be an act of assigning the function that creature will have. In Mesopotamia, the assigning of function is referred to as the decreeing of destiny. Decreeing destiny by giving a name is an act of authority. In the ancient world, when a king conquered another country, the king he put on the throne was given a new name. In other cases, the giving of a name is an act of discernment in which the name is determined by the circumstances. In either case, Adam's naming of the animals is his first step in subduing and ruling. He is fulfilling the role that he had by virtue of being in God's image. But it also leads him to realize that among the animals, there is no social equal to share his function in place. So remember, the ancient world, everything is about giving something a function. And when you give something a function, you give it life. And when you take that function away, then you make it dead. So, for example, somebody in the ancient world, uh, your function in the ancient world could be like being a man. Your function as a man would be to provide for your family, right? So that would be like your function in the ancient world. Hey, what's up, Spence? Late to the party, but came during the naming piece. Will this apply to post baptisms as well as in the name change after rebirth? Yes. So when you notice in the Old Testament, Abram, right? Abram's name is or Abraham's name is Abram. And then when he meets God and God befriends him, God changes his name to Abraham, right? Jacob's name is Jacob, but then when Jacob wrestles with God, God changes Jacob's name to Israel. So when you get a new name in the ancient world, you're actually being, like you said, you're being reborn. You're given new life. Hence, even in the New Testament, some people dispute this, but some people say that Saul changed his name to Paul. In Hebrew, his name actually would have been I think it was Shaul. So it sounds pretty much like a black name, but that's how it was seen in the ancient world. So when Adam is naming these animals, Adam is giving them life, and he's giving them like a soulish feature. Um, and like I said, in the ancient world, they thought more of in terms of function. So for example, in the ancient world, if you were a man, your function, your duty, right? Your job as a man was to provide for your family. The book of Proverbs says that a man who can't provide for his family is worse than a non-believer. So if you were a man in the ancient Near East and you couldn't provide for your family, then you were as good as dead. Why? Why were you as good as dead if you couldn't provide for your family? Because you did not fulfill your function or your role as a man in society. Remember, in the ancient world, everything was about a collective, a cooperative, a group. So if you couldn't bring anything to that collective group, then you had no function. And you even see this in the punishments that Adam and Eve get, right? Adam, as a man, he was supposed to provide for his family, right? Provide for his woman. But what's one of the punishments that God gives to Adam? Well, now Adam is going to till the ground, and now thorns and thistles are going to spring out from out of the ground. So Adam, he died in ancient Near Eastern way of putting it. The punishment for Adam and Eve wasn't necessarily, it wasn't physical death. What the punishment in Old Testament thinking is, the punishment that Adam and Eve get is they now lose their function in society. Adam can no longer provide for his family, so he is dead. Eve, she has trouble conceiving a child because in the ancient Near Eastern world, a woman who couldn't give birth to children, you were as good as dead. So, isn't it quite ironic that her punishment is that now she's going to have a lot of trouble conceiving children through childbirth? And what about the serpent? Well, the serpent, his social function is taken away because he was once very clever and he was in a high status of position, but now he's lost his function now as well, because now he's going to be lower than all the other animals in the field. So the what I'm saying is, the punishment that Adam and Eve and the serpent get in Genesis chapter 3, we have been taught forever and ever and ever that the punishment that Adam and Eve received had to do with physical death and physicality. And this is the reason for why women have pain in childbearing. This is ah and in losing your name, you lose your gifts and covenants. Yes, because you have brought dishonor on your family and your family name. You are correct. So, like what's going on in the story of Adam and Eve is, we've been taught that it's all about physicality, and the reason why this person wrote this story down is because they're trying to explain why there's death in the world and why there's suffering in the world and blah blah blah. That's not what's going on in the story. First of all, the story of Adam and Eve is really about the story of Israel. These people don't care about people in Australia. These people don't care about people in China. The person who's writing down the story of Adam and Eve only cares about Israel. Secondly, the Adam and Eve story isn't trying to explain why people physically die. The story of Adam and Eve is trying to explain why Israel is in a low status, or they're in a low status in society, basically. So I know we've been taught for years and years and years and years that this is what the Adam and Eve story is about. It's about real people and physical death and physical this, and it's a lot different than what we've been taught, what we've been told. But that basically goes into like the whole name thing, and why is Jesus asking for the name of this demon, and like what's that about? So you kind of have like this ancient Near Eastern like magical duel between Jesus and this demonic power. Um, which is why when you read sources from Josephus or a lot of ancient Near Eastern historians, people think that Jesus was a magician. And if you understand why they have that train of thought, then it is very understandable to understand why these people thought that Jesus was actually practicing magic. It is very easy to make those connections. There also is a little bit more significance in the whole Markian story of Jesus casting out the demons. In Rome, right, they ate pigs, right? And their Roman legionnaires would refer to themselves as pigs. Jews refer to Romans as pigs, right? So remember when Mark was written during the Jewish Roman War. And so when Mark is crafting this story about Jesus, it's also a very, how do you say, it's a very clever way to throw shots at the Roman Empire. So if you were an ancient or Eastern Jew and you were writing a piece of literature about a messianic figure who was going to destroy Rome, what would you have him do? Well, one thing you could do is you could have him have authority over the Roman army. So in the story, when Jesus asks the demons, right, what is their name? And they say, we are legion. That actually is a play on the Roman legionnaires. And Jesus has power, he has authority over the Roman legionnaires because he cast these demons into pigs, and then these pigs go off of a cliff into the sea. Well, what sea was that? What sea did they go into? Well, I think if I'm correct, that was the Sea of Galilee. And the Sea of Galilee, a nickname they called it was Lake Tiberius. Now, who is Tiberius? Tiberius, at that time when Jesus was alive on the planet, Jesus would have lived in Jerusalem, and Jerusalem would have been under the reign of the Roman Empire. And the Caesar at that time would have been Caesar Tiberius, Emperor Tiberius. And the lake that Jesus would have casted the pigs into would have been called Lake Tiberius. So Jesus has authority over the Roman legionnaire, and he casts the Roman legionnaire into Lake Tiberius. Jesus has authority over the Roman Empire and the king. So you can see why they would have burnt these books and they would have put Christians on crosses, because the book of Mark, if you're an emperor reading the book of Mark, it's disrespectful. Also, coincidentally, that same sea, the Sea of Galilee or Lake Tiberias, that was the sea that Jesus walked on. So when you're reading the book of Mark, keep in mind that this is a polemic against the emperor. And so remember what I said, we always talk about these stories, but we don't talk about what they mean. What does it mean that Jesus walked on water? It wasn't just the fact that Jesus walked on water that was amazing. What was amazing was that the sea that Jesus is supposed to have walked on was called Lake Tiberias. What that's supposed to communicate to the audience is that Jesus walked on the emperor. Jesus is walking on Emperor Tiberius. So there's a lot more nuance to these stories than what we originally thought. And hopefully I was able to bring some of that out. I'm not sure what the next videos or whatever I'm going to talk about is, but if you like these videos, share them around, show some people. I am going to be honest, probably 0.001% of people probably know any of this stuff. Like we pick up the Bible, we read our Bibles, and I mean it's nice and cute, but there's many different layers to this biblical text, and a lot of times our understanding is very surface level. But I'll try and make some more videos as I keep going through. Take a look at my last couple videos, my last 4 videos, and yeah, that'll keep me encouraged to keep making them. So on that note, I think this video is long enough. Um, this has been a good YouTube Bible study, I guess. And all right, y'all, I'm out.